Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Slice of Gaming podcast, episode 87 for March 2nd, 2025. Now, you may be wondering why this episode is late. It's because we lost the initial recording. But I got my two boys to come back, and we're going to re-record the podcast episode because we try not to miss a week. Joining me today is Bench.
Happy to be here. I've been in the hunting grounds, monster hunting.
Awesome. And then we also have Moonlight 150.
I too have been in the hunting grounds, but I just looking for bears in the living lands because bears don't drop bear claws anymore. Apparently, it's annoying.
You still haven't found bear claws?
No, and I've killed I swear a whole population of bears.
I've just go full deforestation mode.
Pretty much.
That's funny.
I want to upgrade my stuff already, but I need bear claws.
That's so weird. I feel like I started swimming in bear claws by the end. I guess it's fair enough. It's just RNG at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely this is going to be a very short episode because we're all pretty tired, and also we already recorded this episode already, so we know what our talking points are going to be. Basically,
better thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
Hindsight.
If you want to find us, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every podcast platform. We're going to be on there. Like the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at A Slice of Gaming. But let's start with the sad news, which is Warner Brothers shutting down 3 studios plus canceling Wonder Woman. This is from Tom Ivan over at VGC. Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War studio Monolith Productions is shutting down with its in-development Wonder Woman game being axed, according to Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier. His sources have also claimed that Warner is closing Multiversus Studio, Player First Games, and mobile-focused studio WB San Diego. And then there's a bunch of extra info from there, but I mean, what's y'all's kind of first read of this whole situation?
I mean, it just sucks in general, but I mean, if you kind of look at the spreadsheets, then I guess it would make sense for Monolith, but Player First Games, they were bought 8 months ago to I guess see Multiverses through to its conclusion, and it kind of sucks that once that got snipped in the bud, that they just tossed them aside.
Yeah, they're the worst part of this whole story is just the fact that Monolith obviously has an extremely long history, which is pretty depressing too. But
Yeah.
Player First, they put out a game that had what was it, 500K concurrence, a massive, massive number of players playing that game. It was huge, and because of just really stupid decisions from the top of unreleasing the game and then trying to do a second launch, it led to the game's cancellation. So yeah, no, very, very unfortunate for Player First Games. Moon, kind of what's your read of this situation?
Yeah, kind of the same where it's it was kind of an inevitability when you just look at the numbers in a way of Wonder Woman was clearly too long in development, and the whole thing with Multiverses falling off, and when they announced Multiverse was ending in May, I'm kind of surprised the studio shutdown didn't happen at the same time, but it was like the writing on the walls that Warner Brothers, not just the gaming division, but the entirety of Warner Brothers itself is just fumbling hard right now. And it's just kind of inevitability. And we're just now waiting in the wings for stuff what does it mean for NetherRealm and Rocksteady, though I think they said they're okay for now because they're much more deep into development. This seems to be the companies that are still in pre-production pretty much, and they're you know what, before we spend another 5-6 years making another game, we're just gonna cut everything, which is unfortunate, but it makes sense from a business standpoint to the point of, yeah, you need to reorganize and get your shit together.
Yeah. But I do think these were the cuts. I think everything else that was left are things they believe in and are working on their tentpole IPs of Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and Batman.
And one other, what was it? Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's clear that WB is just trying to restructure, refocus. Do you guys kind of think that they try to stick around to this business and instead of licensing out their IPs and studios, they're you know what, we're just going to stick it through and make WB games? Or do they kind of go the Marvel Games route?
I think this is their last straw. If they don't get it with the next Rocksteady Batman game, if they don't get it with the next Harry Potter game, then yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. But unfortunately, this is also Batman and Harry Potter we're talking about, so they're most likely going to at least be somewhat of a hit. I mean, Star Wars, we like to clown on like Star Wars Outlaws, but at the same time, it wasn't a massive failure. It was just kind of a mediocre failure or
I
just a
don't know.
small win.
It sold 1 million in a month. I feel like that's a pretty
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
fail.
It's decent. Well, granted, it's decent compared to a lot of other games, but compared to like what the IP is, it could have been bigger. So it kind of feels like that. Like, yeah, they're hedging all their bets on their biggest property, so they're going to be successes to some degree. But I think they want bigger. And that's the problem with all these like CEO decisions is they always want bigger than what's more realistic.
Yeah, they outright said they want fewer games that are larger, and it's like you've been doing that, and that hasn't been working out. Like Hogwarts Legacy worked out because it was just a single player Harry Potter game, nothing crazy. But then you made shit like Suicide Squad, which was supposed to be this big live service joint, and that doesn't work. Jason Schreier went on to Kind of Funny Games Cast. I wanted to bring this up, some interview points. He kind of went over each of the key points. Shout out to SpiderFan77, kind of doing a big bullet point roundup on gaming leaks and rumors, that subreddit. Following Shadow of War's release in 2017, Monolith was not interested in making another Lord of the Rings game and began developing an original IP codenamed Legacy. After Legacy was canceled by WB in 2021, Monolith's entire leadership team and many other devs quit. Most of these devs went over to form Cliffhanger Games with EA and are currently developing a Black Panther game. Monolith then began work on a Wonder Woman around May-June 2021. This game would be revealed at Game Awards 6 months later. Monolith was forced to work on Wonder Woman while simultaneously rebuilding their staff and leadership teams. So yeah, I mean, overall, just like a really brutal situation for Monolith specifically. They had just 8 years without a game, and now they're just gone. And like a lot of those devs who have been working on a game since 2017, now that this ridiculously long gap in their resume that they can't really fill. It's brutal. I mean, it's just that type of thing. And I do wonder, like, with a lot of that leadership going on with Cliffhanger Games in this Black Panther game, what did we predict with this Black Panther game? Do we still think it's going to be a ways out?
Yeah,
I mean, Jason Schreier in his interview kind of chuckled whenever it was brought up.
He was messing around because he immediately afterwards was
Okay.
like, oh, no, I know nothing about Black Panther.
Okay.
I was weirded out by that too, but it's like, nah, okay.
I think it's still a ways off.
It's still a ways out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that's not. I mean, I think Wonder Woman is now going to become the poster child of like, yeah, you don't put out a kind of announcement teaser for something that you don't even have production started on.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're trying to do like hiring specifically. And even then, like that, there's a difference between an announcement teaser and like kind of like a blog post. Like that Splinter Cell remake basically got like a blog post of like, hey, we're working on this, we're hiring, versus something like a Wonder Woman that got a whole ass trailer.
I got a whole CGS trailer that played at the Game Awards.
Yeah, exactly. WB Montreal, he talks about them. Following the release of Arkham Origins, WB Montreal began development on 2 games, their own Suicide Squad game and a sequel to Arkham Knight focused on Damian Wayne. Both were eventually canceled, and they began developing Gotham Knights in 2017. Gotham Knights was originally intended to be live service, but they reversed course. Schreier says Gotham Knights 1.5, he mentioned previously in his article, would have been a separate, smaller game like Spider-Man Miles Morales, but it wasn't approved. Following Gotham Knights' failure, some execs at WB Games wanted Montreal to become a support studio, and many devs put on support for Wonder Woman and other games. As of now, Montreal is currently pitching a new game based on Game of Thrones. And, you know, as we talk about, like, with these, like, IP, the 10-pole IPs, it's like a Game of Thrones game now feels like such a, like, just bad timing when the show is not nearly as popular. And I know House of the Dragons is a thing, but it's not Game of Thrones, like, season 1 through 6 where everyone was talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity to have a Game of Thrones game, because you could have even done it whenever it just finished and it probably still would have been pretty big. And I do think it'd probably sell a couple million copies, but it wouldn't do what it could have done 5 years ago.
Yeah, like it'll still be a thing, but it's just not to the same scale. And I am surprised Montreal kind of survived these cuts, but I do agree with you, Bench. I think these are the major cuts that they're making. And like, I don't know when in the future they'll start making more cuts, but not anytime soon. At least I want to hope. Schreier, and then the other studio, Schreier confirms Rocksteady is in early development on a new Batman game. We already really knew that. As was previously posted, TT Games is working on a new Lego game that is planned to release next year. It doesn't say exactly what it is, but the rumors are that it's Lego Harry Potter that adapts the whole franchise. As previously reported, Avalanche is working on a director's cut of Hogwarts Legacy with new DLC. I mean, it just again like shows like Avalanche Studios very much looks like kind of the ones that they went from a studio that did just random shitty kids license games to basically being like one of the premier studios within WB, which is such a fascinating kind of like turnaround for them. Which shout out to Avalanche, they're a great studio and they're going to be doing great stuff with that IP.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, is that director's cut this year?
I don't think it's been like rumored for whenever it would come out. I assume this year. Rocksteady was doing support for it, so I'd assume it has to be this year. And then we have this Lego Harry Potter game, which, yeah, that sounds about right for next year.
Yeah,
TT
I mean,
Games, that's a weird one.
Adapting the entire Harry Potter franchise into a singular game like they did with Star Wars just makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know TT Games had a lot of rough kind of crunch issues for a while, but hopefully they kind of got out of that, and they are also just decently safe. They can make bangers, because Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga went through a really weird development cycle. But yeah, that's the Warner Brothers games, that whole situation. Probably going to be getting some developments over the next few months, but I mean, I was kind of thinking about this, but it feels like, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's like a new developer that comes on, or a new publisher every year that kind of takes the brunt force of being stupid. Like last year it was Embracer Group and everyone was clowning on them. Now it feels like this year's is Warner Brothers.
Yeah, but Warner Brothers has so many more just beyond issues than gaming as well. It's just like a dumpster
100%.
fire.
Yeah. David Zaslav. But it's hopefully now, like with David Haddad gone, who previously ran WB Games, they can get to a better position with that division. Moving on to our next story, more positive news. Pokemon presents, well, more negative news, if depending on who you ask. Certain people in our Discord would say so. But Pokemon presents February, the February 27th. We all watched this. We all woke up really early. Moon woke up at 6 a.m. God bless his soul.
Stop reminding me.
But yeah, we all watched it. What we could skip over a lot of the mobile and like kind of like spin-off stuff unless you guys have anything to say about Cresselia and Darkrai and Pokemon Sleeve, but to move into Pokemon Champions. And we were talking about this a lot. This seems like a very interesting game. So this is effectively, our current theory is that it's effectively a battle simulator akin to Pokemon Showdown, where we create our Pokemon, we build our teams, and we can actually like get into competitive Pokemon without spending hours breeding and getting perfect IVs, all that. I really love the conceptual standpoint of this game, but it really depends on the execution. What about you?
Yeah, it entirely comes down to, is it like Showdown where you can't just mess around with a team and it's like, what if this team had this and had like this setup, but you don't have to spend the hours to breed the Pokemon, get the IV, get the EV, get the nature that you all want just to test it out and to realize, oh, this actually doesn't work like I thought it would. And then you have to start all over again. It's like, I don't know, you just input like move, level, whatever, and then you're all like, let's go test this out. And as everyone is saying in the competitive community, it's like, hopefully this is what saves competitive and this becomes like their new stand. Like they don't have to use whatever the latest game is. Like, no, they can just keep using champions and update it as games come out. And that just keeps competitive alive. So this all depends on, does the Pokemon company truly care about the competitive scene that much? And I think they do, because the little bit that I watch
every year.
The championships that I watch every year, they seem to take this pretty seriously. So to make their gaming process simpler seems like the smart move. So that's my hopium.
Yeah, I agree, because I think we're seeing Pokemon kind of go away, their main games go away from a competitive standpoint, which was kind of what they used to be. Like, look at Legends, it's going to be the first new Pokemon game out in 3 years, and it's not a competitive game whatsoever at all. And maybe with Gen 10, they don't laser focus on that because they'll have champions, because it's not like a free game, so they're putting a lot of effort into this and believe in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. This just seems like a situation where they're kind of taking this game that, like taking the competitive community and trying to grow it to an even more substantial market, especially because this is going to be on mobile. Now that I was a little worried, but they checked the website and very much this is a paid video game, so it's not going to be kind of freemium type BS like that. So the fact that it is a pay to play game, it's going to be on mobile. It's clear they're trying to get more and more people into the competitive battling side of Pokemon, which is very exciting because that side of Pokemon is a ton of fun, but it's so difficult to get into, that kind of barrier to entry. And it's gotten easier with each generation, but as time has gone on, we're kind of at the point now where it's like, just let us make the Pokemon. And I think, Moon, we talked about this a lot on our first recording of this, but the idea of the Pokemon Home transferring, we were a little worried, but then like you look at the graph and it's like, it makes more sense if, hey, you could transfer your Pokemon from Home to Champions, but you can't like transfer from Champions to like Scarlet and Violet because
Yeah.
you
That's
can't
where
just
my
create super
initial
overpowered mons.
Yeah, that's where my initial worry comes from. That, like, what if Pokemon just completely botches this and says, no, this is for the casuals. You can bring your team that you used in Scarlet and Violet and the upcoming games, and you can battle with them online. Test, like, did you really make the best team in your game? And it's like a super casual thing, and you just can't make anything. That's like my initial worry is that because they said in the presents that he specifically said, what was like his phrasing? You can take it's like you can test your team that you used, or I can't remember, but it basically boiled down to
Like
using your in-game team. So that makes me worried that no, there's going to be no showdown aspect of this where you actually make the Pokemon. It's just using the team that you made, and you're going to have to continue to making them in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. If it's anything like that, if it's this kind of like battle simulation game, I would be very excited for this. But again, we didn't even see gameplay, so
Yeah.
it seems. I mean, do you guys think it's this year?
No.
No, because they would have at least said coming this year, coming 2025 or something like that. They gave nothing regarding a release.
Yeah,
Now I could see this game go into like a beta for a limited amount of time, and maybe that's this year. But I don't
Yeah.
think like the full
Something
release
close.
is this year.
yeah, I'm with you guys there. I do also want to point out, we never pointed this out initially. Pokemon Works, they said this is the development team. Pokemon Works is the joint venture between Ilka and Game Freak that was announced a while back. So it seems like this was the thing that they really wanted Ilka for, which, hey, I mean, that works out. It means less stress on Game Freak's side. Which at this point, it's like, please just don't let Game Freak take on too much shit at once.
Mm-hmm.
But moving into an actual Game Freak game, Pokemon Legends Z to A, or Pokemon Legends ZA, as a lot of people have been affectionately referring to it as. What did you guys think? Like, just top level on this trailer.
Originally, I was kind of whelmed, but then I've watched the trailer probably 20 to 25 times now, and now I'm on the hype train. Just everything about this trailer was just kind of fun. Granted, we haven't had a Pokemon game in a while, so that could be a thing. But I mean, I'm just getting my hopes up for this game because we're in one city, and they can really build out that one location, like visually and narratively. I think to make something pretty special if they feel like it. On top of the action battle system, we're just really seeming to feel like you're going to be in the anime with like dodging and stuff and trying to time attacks while people are running around, and that gets me excited because that's like the dream, really, at least to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, it seems like they're actually taking things in a different direction. And I understand a lot of the concerns surrounding the game. But graphically, like, I'm into the art style. Even, like, I saw a lot of, like, tweets popping off of, like, this game looks terrible. And it's like, guys, I feel like we should put our expectations in check for the company. They should be higher. I should expect more from a company that's the highest grossing franchise of all time. But I kind of just, like, don't have the energy to be mad about this anymore. So I'm like, hey, it looks better than Scarlet and Violet, which people comparing it to Scarlet and Violet, that's funny as hell. I don't think you remember how bad Scarlet and Violet looked. That's all I'll say.
Like, just type in Google Scarlet Violet glitch and just
Oh,
see,
God.
or bug.
Yeah, no, 100%. But even then, like, I'm into, like, kind of their going for a more cartoony art style compared to what Scarlet and Violet was doing, which was the more realistic textures, which I appreciate.
You think they were
And also-
realistic pictures? I
Yeah,
didn't really see
Trying.
Central Leagues
For the
put up a good
Pokemon.
comparison. Yeah, mostly for the Pokemon.
For the Pokemon.
Yeah. If there's a good comparison screenshot to show, it's like they went for weirder texture work in Scarlet and Violet that like tried to elicit more realistic vibes, and it just didn't work. Whereas like I think this one's kind of more originally like what Legends Arceus was doing. But even despite that, I'm really into like just the visual look of this game. I think it all taking place in Lumia City is like a concern. I wonder how that would work, but I'm open to seeing like, okay, how many varied environments can we have within one city? Can
Like,
you like
you
do
know that
something
one part
really
of town
different?
that's just always covered in snow?
Yeah, exactly. That's where you get the ice Pokemon. Is just the snow area.
The snow
Um,
block.
and the active time battle system, I'm actually interested in like just making a more action, real time combat. And I again like maybe it's weird, maybe it doesn't work, maybe it's like oh that was a dumb experiment. But at the end of the day, I'm glad they're experimenting with a franchise that's felt stagnant for so long.
Yeah, I mean, that's what spin-offs are for, is to experiment. And as long as it's either like an option or they just completely just do normal stuff in the mainline games, that's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, Moon, what do you think of this whole thing?
I mean, I have more hope for it after a second or third viewing. The first time I was just like, oh, okay. And then the second or third viewing, I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little bit more into this. I like the possibilities, but there are obviously some hesitations, like, does the action combat actually function well after how stuttery Scarlet and Violet was? Or even Legends Arceus, like you were like half action combat in that, and it was still pretty juddery too. As well as the whole aspect of the story wise, like how much can you get out of a singular city? I'm hoping there's at least some surrounding areas that you can go to. Obviously, you're
like
not going
the
to go
power
to
plant.
another town, but at least some, the lake that's outside of town or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
but I
into
also
it.
think that this game will have a designated Switch 2 port.
Yeah, I
Day
mean, we
one.
could
I
talk
think
about that, the idea of a Switch 2 version. You were pretty adamant about there being like an actual Switch 2 box bench. I'm very
Yeah.
much of the mind that there'll be a Switch 2 patch, but I don't know about like a whole ass box.
Let's think
think
of though,
just on
Nintendo's
the
never done a patch like that.
it's new times. I honestly think, but also I
Is
think
it
they
new
want
times with
that
Nintendo?
box. I think they want that new box out for the holiday because this is their holiday game. They want a new Switch 2 game at Black Friday that doesn't just say Nintendo Switch.
I don't think that really matters. Like, it's just a new Nintendo Switch game. Like, it doesn't matter if it says Switch 1 or Switch 2 on it. It's just a new game.
I think it's very much depends on like how Nintendo wants to go about like the cross-gen nature of this device and how long that cross-gen period is going to last. I think for certain franchises you're going to get more cross-gen. I think like Kirby games or Pokemon stuff that's like a lot less slower tech. But whenever like there's a bet right now about the next 3D Mario, that's 100% a Switch 2 exclusive, and that's not even like a tech thing. They want to get you to buy the console for that game, that type of thing. So it really depends again, like on what. I honestly feel like we'll get like an understanding of their plans by next month, which is the Switch 2 Direct.
30 days from now, the countdown
Oh
has
my God,
started.
30 days. Oh, dude, gonna be the best day of my life.
Hyped.
But yeah, that's Pokemon Legend ZA. So you guys would all agree, like we're all kind of like more excited for this game after seeing it.
A
Yeah,
little
for
bit,
sure.
yeah.
I just
And there was that rumor that the reason why it's not like a summer title, we all felt like when it was first announced, it's like, oh, it's going to be early 2025 or like mid, like around May or so. And now they're confirming late 2025. The rumor
That's
being that
so thankful.
they're working on a Switch 2 version. That's part of the delay.
Yeah, that's very possible. And I'm so down for them taking as much time as they need with this game, especially after Scarlet and Violet. Moving into our next story, Fable, the big Xbox game, has been delayed to 2026. Shinobi put this, and also there was some pre-alpha footage released alongside it. We kind of talked about this a lot, like coming up to the delay, thinking like, oh, is it going to get delayed? Is it not? I was pretty adamant that it would be delayed, and I was right. I don't like being right about a delay, but at the end of the day, just like everything we've seen, it's like it didn't seem like it was ready. I just kind of hate how long I have to wait from reveal nowadays when it comes to these big tentpole games. But thankfully, Xbox hasn't been as like reveal happy, and they've been like more like we'll reveal it when it's a bit closer. So I want to hope that's the case. I will say the pre-alpha footage looked really good visually, but gameplay-wise, I'm like, okay, you guys got to still convince me. What's kind of y'all's reading on Fable right now?
I mean, I think this was just a strategic delay for one to kind of just give other things to room to breathe and polish it up more, because that's what they did with Avowed, and it worked for sure.
Yeah.
And I also think they want PS5 day one, because I think they look at Avowed and think, if this was on PS5 day one, we probably could have got it double the sales, and I think they want that with Fable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and that's what it feels like is if they do want to go the multi-release for certain franchises, like I feel like they'll keep stuff like Doom the slightly have a well no, Doom is coming out multi on the same day, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, never mind then. I was gonna say like maybe certain things will keep on Xbox for a little bit, but it's like nah, they're just going full in. Never mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think, especially by 2026, I think it's just gonna be like day and dates for everything. Which at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, stop doing the whole like, oh, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Just say, yeah, we're releasing our games everywhere day one. And that's fine. The games are gonna still be good. But I do agree with you, Bench, though, the idea of like it being a strategic delay, this idea of like, hey, we're trying to just like give more space to whatever our holiday game is. Which at this point, I mean, do you guys think Gears is this holiday if Fable did get delayed?
Yeah, because that was always the running thought is it's like you're gonna have one of these two games. They're not gonna have both and have them compete with one another. So the fact they saw like okay, Gears can be ready, but Fable isn't. It's like okay, yeah, I'll obviously delay Fable, especially if they're going with the multi-platform. They're like okay, Fable is a game that could probably hit on both consoles, so we're just going to do that. And there's no talk of like long-standing Xbox exclusives like Halo and Gears being multi-platform just yet. So might as well put the multi-platform release later when you can work on that and get them out on the same day on both consoles. And if most likely Gears is getting ready, like we haven't seen anything of it, but internally I'm sure they're looking at it like, yeah, this is going to be ready by holiday, and they can just get it out, and that'll be their holiday game. So it is just a big strategic move, and it seems to be working for them.
Alrighty, well, let's move into our next story. One of my favorites, Konami and Bloober team are working on a new game following the success of Silent Hill 2. Chris Scullion posted this on VGC. Bloober team enjoyed critical success with its remake of Silent Hill 2, but now the studio will work with the publisher on a new title. While it would appear that a new Silent Hill game would almost certainly be in the cards, Bloober's team's statement simply says it will be working on a, quote, new game based on Konami's IP. I mean, listen, I'll ask right now. I mean, is it something other than Silent Hill, or is it just going to be another Silent Hill remake?
I think it's a remake.
I think it's going to be another remake. Just it's a little bit safer. They're like, okay, you've done now 2 good Silent Hill remakes. Now let's do an original one. So, yeah, it feels like one doesn't feel like a success yet, but once you have 2 successful games under the Silent Hill branding, they're like, okay, now we can do a new thing. Isn't that what Resident Evil did? Like it was 2 remakes until we got finally.
Yeah, we got 2 remake and no, because we got a new game before the remakes. Because we got 7 before 2 remakes.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Resident Evil was in better standing than Silent Hill was, so that makes more sense.
Yeah, no.
I think you got to reestablish the Silent Hill brand first.
People aren't familiar with Silent Hill the same way they are with Resident Evil, and the best-selling Silent Hill game for a long time sold 2 million copies. So this franchise has never really been like the big AAA hit. So the fact that right now Silent Hill 2 remake sold 2 million copies is like, I think they're really going to try to reestablish Silent Hill as like kind of a premier franchise, which is really exciting. And this whole idea of one remake to me sounds very interesting. There is the possibility that they jump over to 3, but I feel like it's like 1 really could utilize that remake treatment that could help that game a lot. I'm into it, whatever it is. Bloober team kind of nailed Silent Hill 2 remake, and again, this is a team that we kind of clowned on for so long. So to basically see them,
like, imagine you were talking to the Wolf from like a year and a half ago about this, like, oh yes, Bloober team doing more Silent Hill, yes please.
Listen, man, they nailed it. I can't deny it. They proved us wrong. They proved everyone wrong, except Bench and Fusion, who were like, "Dude, this game looks heat." Anyways, moving into our next story. Okami Games has this split fiction. We got some new details from a min-max interview. Playtime is 12 to 15 hours, similar to It Takes Two. This is a classic Joseph Ferris quote that I love. Hazelight is not for sale. We will not be on the stock market, never have microtransactions, no bullshit, just make games, period. I wish every game developer thought like that, honestly. It Takes Two has sold 23 million copies, with half being from China, which honestly the China stat was the surprising part for me, but also it was more surprising. It's like I didn't know it was in sale, I didn't know it was being sold in China. The fact that it was, it's like, okay, never mind. That makes more sense that it's half of it from China then. And then one major thing that for me kind of was like the big part. Joseph Ferris teases a potential genre change for Hazelight in the future. Quote, co-op will always be part of our DNA, but the first game, Brothers, was single player, and who knows in the future what will happen. I mean, do you guys think they kind of move away from co-op games and they were like, hey, we're going to try a single player game now, like fully single player?
I mean, they've kind of been doing couch co-op games for the past decade. So you'd have to imagine that they kind of think Split Fiction is their like really big, like their best work. And I think they may want to try something new after this.
Yeah,
You can only get so far with the couch co-op game. I mean, like I'm currently not planning on playing it anytime soon because of that. And so it just feels like, okay, let's see how much. Now that we've established ourselves as a name, like how far can we get with a single player game? Like, are those numbers better? Are they the same, etc. And so I'm sure they're going to want to experiment with that at least at one point.
Yeah, 100%. This is a studio that's kind of innovating with each new title. So the idea of them trying to innovate with the single player genre instead of just sticking to their co-op things, their co-op genes, if you will, it gets me more interested. It's like, oh yeah, let's try something out of our wheelhouse, something completely different. And I appreciate the studio and what they're doing. And I mean, you got to think, if you're EA, it's like, damn, these guys, we do not want to let them go. Maybe not for an acquisition, like Joseph Ferris said, they want to stay independent, but like, hey, we'll make sure we'll publish everything for you. Like, we will not get in the way. So yeah, awesome news. And then last story, Wario 64. This is a quick one. PSVR 2 gets a price drop to $399.99 for both the Call of the Mountain bundle and non-bundle units in March. I kind of looked at this as hey, we need to get rid of our extra inventory.
Yep. This thing isn't selling. We need to get rid of this.
Yeah, I mean, like, we kind of mentioned this before, but it's this idea that this is a lot more of a Sony initiative rather than the PlayStation thing. You could tell PlayStation never really put their hearts behind VR. And it's, it's like, yeah, it went down in price. Thank God, because holy shit, the thing was $600. Like, I don't know how they were able to even sell it for $600. And apparently they were selling it at a loss even then. So this was a tech experiment that I felt like Sony was like just trying to see what they could do with it, but not really a successful consumer product. Moving into our last thing, which is what's it called? Open Critic Reviews of the Week. Dude, I completely forgot the segment name for some reason. Monster Hunter Wilds is our big review for the week. It is sitting at an 89 on Open Critic. GameRank gave it an 8 out of 10. IGN give it an 8. A lot of 8s, a lot of 9s from all over the place. And mainly, I want to talk about the concurrent peak player count, which is now at 1.3 million, which was 9 hours after release. This game is absolutely massive.
Redoing this episode is all the numbers went higher.
No, I think these are the same numbers from last time.
Oh yeah, because there's no news on Sunday, but still, it's like, okay, we have. They're all more established now. It's like, yeah, these are. I'm sure if we were to go right now to the Steam numbers, they would be even higher.
Yeah, 100%. But Bench, you've been actually playing Monster Hunter Wilds a whole lot this weekend. So I guess we could transfer into what we've been playing. What are you thinking of it?
I'm loving it. I'm about 12 hours in now, and just every hunt is better than the last. And the combat, I finally found 2 weapons that really click, in the dual blades and the long sword. So just combat's clicking, the monster fights are amazing, the weather events that happen in between while things are getting crazy are great, and it's just everything about the game is very high quality. Even like the story, it's like it makes you feel like a badass and it's dumb fun. So I'm enjoying that, and just music kicks in when it needs to, just everything about the game is doing what it needs to make you feel like a badass monster hunter, and it just continues to ramp up every time you hunt a new monster. So I'm really enjoying it.
What's kind of like the combat feeling? Is it kind of fast? Is it slow? Like, what's the vibe of like kind of getting into that flow state of combat?
I've picked two of the faster weapons. Like the dual blades are definitely the fastest weapon in the game, and then the longsword is kind of in the middle, so it's a little more clunky, but also moves at a good pace. Because I don't like some of the clunkiness of the really heavy weapons that do hit a lot harder. But I like moving around in the battlefield and kind of doing all these crazy things. So that's kind of the combat for me.
Yeah. So it's like a mix. It can kind of be fast, it can be slow, depending on your playstyle.
Yeah, I mean, there's 14 different weapons, and each of them just imagine as a different fighting game character. Completely different. Just move sets, combos, just everything. There's not a same thing about each individual weapon. They're all different.
Have you been playing solo or with a crew?
I've been playing solo, but I've had a couple people hop in here and there to help me with some hunts. So it's kind of in the mix. So it's been pretty fun.
Been good connection wise, like no like real lag or stuttering or issues there.
No, and I mean I hear there's performance issues, but I am playing on the PS5 Pro and I've been pretty good. There hasn't on the balanced 40 FPS mode, there's been no issues.
Awesome. You think you're gonna finish up that main story coming up in the next week?
Yeah, I kind of want to finish another game that I've been sinking a lot of time in, Kaino Kaseki. So I kind of want to finish that. I have about 10 hours left in that. And then I can really like finish Monster Hunter up and get into that end game with some of the crew here and some other people I know to really just dive into those like hardcore hunts and high rank.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Monster Hunter. Doing insane numbers. I wish I could get into it. It's just not my thing, but I do. I love that a game like this is doing as well as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Moon have been playing Avowed. Bench dropped it because he hates me. I don't really care actually.
No, he hates
Listen,
that.
it's a game that's not for me. It's just the story I wasn't hooked by in the first 5 hours, and it's just I understand why people love it like Call It and Bop, but it's not for me. I'm just not seeing what they're seeing, and that's okay.
I mean, no, I think you're 100% like right about the story and whatnot. I think Avowed is really fun if you're into just first person RPG combat that's very much swinging a sword, using magic. That type of feeling is really enjoyable for pretty much the entire runtime. But I think if you're going into this expecting what Obsidian has made in the past with their RPGs of that choice and consequence, that dialogue, that kind of story that like grips you from beginning to end, I don't think Avowed is very good in that department. There are some great moments, there are some great like decisions, but they just feel kind of hollow when it's just every now and then sprinkled in rather than the whole tale gripping you through. For me at least, I'm gonna put out a full review, but what I feel right now with Avowed is, hey, this is a solid game. This is an 8 out of 10. This is a great Game Pass game. If you have Game Pass, this is an easy recommend. But I don't know if I'd immediately jump on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same way that the story is definitely the weakest part of the game, and the combat is what really carries it. Like the RPG aspects are definitely floundering in the way of I'm not even really reading the dialogue so much. I'm just picking the top one, which seems to be agree. Yeah, let's just keep moving on because there is no almost outside of picking a fight with everybody. The choices that you make in the dialogue don't seem to really do anything. So that kind of hindered it for me. I think that's just also on the story side of it. It's like there really is no outside of being the what's the word called where you just want to fight everyone, but the antagonizer pretty much. Like I will just fight everyone and kill. Like there have been plenty of opportunities I could have fought my way out of something, but instead I talked my way out. But yeah, like outside of those choices, there's nothing to it, and the story is just barely there for me to pay attention to. But at least I'm having fun with the combat. I'm switching around my loadouts pretty frequently and struggling with money and upgrading stuff. What's that?
I'd say killing lots of bears.
Killing lots of bears. Just the bear's gonna go extinct in the living lands here pretty soon.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like I think I'm a little higher than you, but even then, it's like we do share the same qualms of just like, hey, this is not a game you play for the.
It is the perfect like 8 out of 10 game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this is fun. This is a very fun game, but it's not like Obsidian, like what they're known for, which is so funny because they're always known for like, oh, the stories are great, but the gameplay sucks. This is the exact opposite. But yeah, shout out to Avowed. lots of games coming out in March. Anything you guys are like really looking at? Like, oh, I want to play that day one.
I mean, it's kind of right now. It's the race to get everything finished before Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. So I've never played the original X, so I'm very interested. But I also hear it's a very long game, like 80 to 100 hours. So it's kind of something I'm building up to, getting really excited for as they put out more information. But also, like, I need to finish Citizen Sleeper 2, Kai no Kiseki. Kind of get to a point in Monster Hunter where I'm good to just come back every couple of weeks, or every couple of days. And then I'd like to either play Yakuza 2 or make another dent in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. Just a lot to get done before.
Bro's got a lot of stuff going on.
Spring break happened, so I've got some time, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is that one game in March, and I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, imagine having spring break.
Anything
It's just finish up Avowed for me. I would have gotten a Split Fiction if I could find someone dedicated enough to play. Atelier Yumi has been putting out a lot of promotion stuff. I'm like, oh, this actually could be really good. And even though I keep telling myself, no, I need to play the Ryza games first. But the problem with Yumiya right now is when it releases, like it's near the end of the month. And I know that's a good like 20 to 30 hour RPG. And I'm like, do I want to go from Avowed to that and rush through that to South of Midnight? Because I think South of Midnight's only like less than or just a little over 2 weeks after Yumiya comes out. So I'm just like, do I really want to push myself like that and then go right into Expedition 33 like 2 weeks after that? So I think giving myself the time, because I'm on the final stretch of Avowed, so it'd be nice to play something casual on the side until South of Midnight comes out. Now, granted, Fusion brought up a good point that South of Midnight is probably like an 8 to 12 hour game. So maybe it's not the worst thing. Maybe I could play Yumiya, hop off, go to South of Midnight, crash through that, then go back to Yumiya. But then also, that's 2 RPGs back to back of Atelier Yumiya and Expedition 33. So do I want to do that? Probably not. So it's a lot of, I'm in the sort of, let's just finish Avowed and see how I feel kind of phase.
Yeah. Split Fiction is definitely something that I'll pick up if, like, Fusion said he is a Split Fiction buddy, but it's very possible he ditches Fusion and doesn't play it. So if he doesn't, then I'll play with Fusion. But if not, then it's something I'll get on sale
play with Fusion. I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Split Fiction is one that it's like, man, I'd like to play that, but I should play It Takes Two first. The fact that I'd never beat that is kind of fucked. Other than that, March is kind of a slow month for me. Like, Suikoden looks cool. I might want to check that out later on. Wanderstop from the Stanley Parable creator. I'm not into like what it is, but I'm like, I trust you, the developer, enough to be like, this is probably gonna be a banger. So I'm gonna keep my eyes on that.
Yeah, that's more of a wait and see. Like, what does actually the community say happens in that game?
Yeah. But it is funny. None of us are picking up Shadows.
I mean, there was that clip that just came out today that's like, oh, that looked pretty cool, but Assassin's Creed is just not the kind of game that I'm going to jump in at $70. Like, if it actually gets good reviews and good word of mouth, like, okay, maybe I'll see you in the fall when you're $30 cheaper.
Exactly. It's just, I don't trust this game. It seems like it's doing stuff right because it's like, oh, it's Assassin's Creed in Japan. This looks cool, like samurai and ninja. But then, like, every preview was like, it's more Assassin's Creed. It's like, okay, I'm not getting fooled again. Not letting this be my, oh, this is the one I get in, because I've done that in the past, and it's just never worked out for me with this franchise. But we'll get Jack on the podcast to talk about it, because he's 100% picking it up day one. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for our podcast today. Boys, for a second recording, I almost think we did better. Okay?
I'd agree.
We were more concise.
Yeah, exactly. I have been fasting, so I cannot drink water. So it turns out podcasting during the day is way harder, but it's fine. I had a lot of fun with you boys. I think we're about ready to head out. If you guys want to find us, we're on podcast platforms all over the podcast sphere. We're pretty much
interwebs
platform. Yep. Like the podcast, any type of support helps, and follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at A Slice of Gaming. With that, I think we're gonna head out. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good afternoon, because it's actually the afternoon. We
switched
it up.